Excuse me, today's brief talk is the last component of the refuge talks. So hopefully you've seen the previous videos of taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And this aspect is a bit different because it's in reference to taking what's called false refuge. And this is really the catalyst that brings most of us to Buddhist practice, looking for liberation, looking for transformation. And it's really at the root of all Buddhist teachings. In particular, the teachings warn us and tell us that, we will suffer when we attach to our pursuit of a pleasure object, and we do so in spite of knowing that it's harmful to us. And Buddhist logic gives us equations to kind of investigate and help make decisions. And of course, we need to be clear about our intention. But Buddhist logic says we can choose for short-term pleasure, which will ultimately result in long-time suffering, or we can choose for short-term suffering, and this will ultimately lead us to long-term happiness. So in terms of how this relates to false refuge is the pleasure object that we indulge, or more aptly overindulge in, take to an extreme, as a way of making ourselves feel good, feel better, avoid pain, and not face or engage what we need to face and engage. So the obvious ones: alcohol, drugs, gambling, sex, pornography, all these different vices. There's less obvious ones that sometimes can seem like they're healthy for us. We can, mine in particular, I can get caught up in training way too much, overtraining martial arts and yoga and spiritual bypassing, using it simply as a distraction, which compounds the problem because I'm not dealing with the issue. And I'm not saying we shouldn't engage in positive activity as coping mechanisms or as vehicles for healing and wellness, but we have to be clear about why we're doing it. So fitness, overloading ourselves with more work, too many activities, hobbies, interests at the expense of ourselves or our families. So there's many ways we can take false refuge. Now, there's another aspect of false refuge, which is subtle refuge. And the subtle refuge is actually more insidious because it's really taking a security, and that's really what refuge is finding a security in something for ourselves. But in this instance, subtle refuge is speaking to the issue of the story, the narrative that we believe in, and that we tell ourselves that is the rationalization, the justification, the catalyst for why we seek refuge in false things. So an example would be if I go through a difficult breakup in a relationship, and the narrative I start telling myself is I can't be alone, or I'm not worthy for certain qualities in a relationship. I don't want to feel the pain of being alone or the heartbreak of loss. These narratives become what we use for security, and that's the insidiousness of delusion, is that we will overlook or not see the harm in these narratives. But they are harmful, but they give us a feeling of comfortability in and security in the refuge we take in them. Why? Because rationalizing and justifying is exactly how we feel secure in the choices we make. So The example I used about maybe I don't want to be alone, or I say I can't be alone. This is the security, the rationalization to get involved in a new relationship maybe way too quickly, or to knowingly enter what's a harmful relationship, or to misuse sex as a refuge from the hurt and other feelings I might be going through from the breakup. So it's very important we're clear that we on the narratives and the stories and that subtle refuge we can so easily take, and the false refuge in the harmful things that it spurns.